to the channel. And we're getting to that time of year again. We're going to start wrapping up 2024. And one video I always like to use as kind of a primer for this time of year, before we get to kind of the top 10s and the 2025 reading plans, all those kind of videos, I like to do a top 20 characters, kind of book characters for 2024. I choose 20 because I really want to throw out recommendations for people that like character-driven stories and books. And I've got 20 great characters this year. They aren't all main characters, so there's a few sideways kind of picks here. And number 20, it's certainly a sideways character, is Applegat from Time of Contempt. This is one of the Witcher novels by Andrzej Sapkowski, and what he does that's really, really fantastic here is that he takes very much a tertiary character, a background character. He makes them the kind of sole point of view for a prologue, and he gives us a real look behind the curtain of his world. He gives us a character with real kind of motivations and real life worries, and he puts them into this weird, obscure world that The Witcher is set in, and it does such a great job of adding a bit of depth and texture to that world. Right, at number 19, we have, this won't be the first book I'll hold up today, probably the first character from Malazan, Book of the Fallen, but we have Fiddler, or Fid. Now, he just happens to be my favourite of the bridge burners. I'm holding up Gardens of the Moon. This will represent my Malazan characters today, just because it's easier to pick up those characters that were first introduced in Gardens of the Moon, because it instantly connects me to them. But Fiddler is a really, really interesting character. We ride along with him quite a bit. He gives us a unique look into a lot of the other bridge burners, because he isn't, initially at least, he's not one of the more senior members. He is one of the lads, and he is just a great character to get to know throughout the books. At number 18, we have another kind of side character, and that is Chief Irving. So Chief Irving is Harry Bosch's chief of police, and he's really wound up by Bosch and his antics, and he is just like a bigger than life character. He is a real kind of characterization of what it is to be chief of police, and his moments in this novel, The Black Echo, are always really, really funny. You really feel for him at times, but at the same time, you don't, because he is a bit of a dick, and he's causing trouble as much as he's fixing it a lot of times. But it's just one of those characters. It's a kind of a cliche, but a lot of fun on the page. At number 17 is going to be Captain Joel Chase from the Sharp novels Trafalgar and Prey. So he is a returning character in the second of the nautical Sharp novels. Captain Joel Chase he's just so generous and kind and affable. He is, gregarious. He's just one of those guys that, he walks into a room, everyone's friends with him. He lifts the room, he lifts the mood of the reader. He helps Sharp, he becomes a friend. He's just, he thinks that everyone is just a right good chap. And you will feel like everyone is a right good chap as well after you read Captain Joel Chase. For number 16, it's no surprise that we're going back to the world that Andrzej Sapkowski created, The Witcher, for another character, this time Mila. So Mila is not the archetypal kind of strong, independent female lead, because what Sapkowski has done is taken someone that is incredibly proficient in certain areas and give them a lot of real world weaknesses. So she is not a Mary Sue. Mila is a very, very competent tracker and hunter, but she really does not develop the social skills or the kind of educational skills. She is unable to read and write. She is unable to interact well in the social situations, because she has been brought up in the woods alongside a lot of the elves, and she's a human, and she's not had those kind of family and social links that have allowed her to develop a side where she can get on with the other characters necessarily in the books. But she is a very strong character. She's a very good-willed character. She's one of the real goodies of what is quite a grey world, and she's just a great character. She's one of the main characters of Baptism of Fire, and yeah, a really good read. Next up, at number 15, from The Way of Kings, we have Lopen. Now, Lopen is a foreigner to the group. He comes and becomes, he's one of those great characters, becomes almost like a sidekick to the main character, Kaladin. and he's always turning up. He kind of lightens the mood. He helps out a lot. He's kind of like the glue for the group sometimes. He's often comes onto scene, calling Kaladin Gancho, and you kind of put like a voice and like a swagger to him. He's quite self-confident, if a little unassuming, and he's just one of those great characters that you get in books that help really make you enjoy it a little bit more. At number 14, we have From the House of Chains by Stephen Erickson, a Book of the Fallen novel here, is the character Pearl. Now, Pearl, again, is one of these unassuming characters. He comes across as quite decadent, quite effeminate. He loves his wine, but he's also an assassin. He's kind of a mage. Is he a goodie? Is he a baddie? It's a very grey character, certainly early on in the novels, but he's quite a likeable character as well, quite a striking character on the page, and one of those interesting characters. I really like these interesting characters that give us a little bit of texture, and definitely Pearl is one of those. At number 13, we have Atok. Now, Atok is quite strangely almost like the nanny to our main character in Gaijin by James Clavell. Now, she is a character that has ties, strong ties to the other books in the Asian saga, but she's such an intelligent character. She comes across as being, oh, you know, feel sorry for me, I'm old and I'm trying to do good and stuff like that. But in the back, she loves a gossip. She loves to get in and find out other people's business. She likes to feed information back to Gordon Chen, who is one of my favourite characters in the series. And yeah, she's very cunning. She is always politicking as well. She's very funny. Some of the jokes between her and the serving staff, it's these little touches that make James Clavell's Asian saga so special. And Atok is one of the great characters of this novel. At number 12, we're going back for a third time to the Witcher series for a character called Regis. Now, he stars in Baptism of Fire, this book here. Now, what he is a very humanitarian vampire. We don't realize he's a vampire initially, but what it turns out is the reader's supposed to know kind of that he's a vampire. The characters aren't so aware, but obviously Geralt is. Geralt is very sensitive to monsters, so to speak, and it's just very funny how he's almost like a vegan vampire. Like, the guy doesn't want to do any harm. He's very, very intelligent. He's very, very old, and he's very, very helpful, and he's very kind, and he is kind of evil looking and creepy and weird, but also, you know, sometimes in life people are a bit weird and a bit creepy, but it doesn't mean they're bad, just like Regis. At number 11 is Severo. So Severo unwittingly becomes like a very unlikely ally to our main character, and he's diminutive and he's very cunning and he's hard to like, but you can't help but like him because he keeps putting his foot in it. He keeps getting in there in the action, getting his hands dirty, helping the good guys. He's just one of those guys, a ride or die. If you've read Red Rising, you'll know Severo he's just one of the boys. He's a good guy, you know? Yeah, a great character. All right, at number 10, we're up to the top 10 characters now, is the Fool from Fool's Errand. And the Fool is in here because it's such a feel-good moment. When the Fool returns, such a great returning character, really hits you in the feels. And every time the Fool is on the page, he brings a warmth. He radiates a friendliness, a caring that just it goes through the characters of the book and it affects the reader. And I think everyone that has read Realm of the Eldlings will tell you the Fool is just one of those great characters that can change the scene, can change the way you feel about a chapter. The Fool. In at number 10, well deserved. Now, a book that's going to feature from here is going to be Lonesome Dove. And from Lonesome Dove, the first character I've chosen is Deets. Now, Deets is not liked by all characters in this novel because Deets is black, and there is racism in this novel because this novel was set over 100 years ago. But Deets is just such a hard character for them to dislike. And over the space of the 1,000 pages or so that make up Lonesome Dove, Deets really endears himself to the characters, even the ones that do not want to like him. They don't want to like him because he is different, but they can't help but like him because Deets is proficient and he is a good person, and he does what he says he's going to do. And those three things are just perfect character traits to have, and in the end he wins everyone over. He will win the reader over almost immediately because he's such a great, such a well-written character. Next up is a character that I was surprised grabbed me as well as it did, and that is Dreem from A Time of Dread by John Gwynne. Now, what is amazing about Dreem is how proficiently John Gwynne manages to write a neurodiverse character. Now, I have not seen a lot of neurodiverse characters in literature that have been written correctly. Does that make sense? Where you are able to identify them and also most likely identify their diagnosis, exactly what is happening with the character and why they are acting slightly differently to everyone else, and how they are taking things that are happening and how they're interpreting things that are happening in a scene, as well as John Gwynne has written Dreem. It goes to speak to the quality of the writing by John Gwynne, his ability as a writer. Yeah, he's really surprised me with this character, and I think it's well deserving of his spot on this list. At number 7, we're going to go back to Lonesome Dove. Larry McMurtry delivers a 1-2 hit in these characters of Deets and P.I. Now, what's really interesting about P.I. is that the character is clearly very uneducated, ignorant, and of potentially a low IQ. So why that's important is it's very easy to write a character like that and just have them be pure comedy relief. And don't get me wrong, P.I. is pretty funny and some funny things happen in there, but P.I.'s character arc is very, very interesting because he becomes less ignorant and he becomes kind of more broad-minded as the books go on, towards Deets as well, who is black, which throws P.I. off at first. Not because he is necessarily inherently racist, he just doesn't know how to interact with people that he's not comfortable with. And P.I. isn't really comfortable with anything that he hasn't experienced before. And he goes on a journey as a character and becomes less ignorant as he goes along. And Deets and P.I. are two of those kind of characters that, like, you hope on this journey that you don't lose along the way, because they're the real characters, they're the real stars of the show, and you'd hate to see them go. At number 6, we're going back to James Clavell and Guy Jin. Now, not all of these books that I'm referencing here will be my top 10 books of the year, but what they probably are my top 10 character-led books of the year. They're just such well-written characters in Guy Jin, especially those hyper-intelligent female characters that he writes. Now, Reiko this time. Reiko is a madam. She's a malazan. She runs a inn, and she has her fingers in all of the political pies. She's able to manipulate those around her, especially men. She finds it hilarious. She will boast about how she's going to do it, then she will do it, and then she'll laugh about it afterwards. And it's just so much fun to see on the page, to see how these hyper-intelligent, long-sighted female characters in these Asian Sagas books are just able to just pull the strings, all the political strings, and maneuver people how they want them. Such amazing writing. Now we're down to the top 5 characters of my reading for 2024, and 5 and 4 in a row are going to be from the same book. That's Midnight Tides by Stephen Erickson. This is a book from Malazan, Book of the Fallen. Now, this is a series that is very dark, it's dirty, it's grungy, it's grim, and it's violent and horrible. And what could a book like this possibly want in a character? Why would it want the two Ronnies in a book as dark as this? Why would it want some Terry Pratchett level comedy, slapstick humor, one-liners, just hilarious comedy inserted into it? As Teho and Bug, they are a twosome, they're a comedy duo. It's fantastic. It's written so well. It takes a very, very rich, substance, and it gives it a little bit of a palate cleanse. It just inserts, a chapter here, a paragraph there of nice, tart, savoury texture, really, just a change of pace. And it gives it a very, very nice cleansing of the palate when you're going from one grim, bloody death to another. Who doesn't want a little bit of humour? So numbers 5 and 4 both go to the same book. Number 3 is a very interesting character study, and that is from this book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, and that is the character Phil Raish. So Phil Raish is effectively our main character, but from a different point of view, from a different perspective. What's really, really important is he gives us the ability to look at ourselves and imagine ourselves in the themes of the novel, and to contemplate those very human emotions and what would our own reaction be to this set of circumstances. That's a very, very important perspective to be given in a novel that is as deep as this. Philip K. Dick, inserting Phil is an absolute masterstroke. It changes the novel profoundly. When you get to that point in this novel, you're probably not necessarily on board. You're probably not realizing that you're reading one of the great novels until you get to this point in the novel, and then this character manages to change everything. I can't recommend this book enough, but this character, Phil, really does belong here at number 3 on the list. At number 2 will come to no surprise to anyone whatsoever, other than the fact that it's not number 1, and that will be Edmund Dantes from The Count of Monte Cristo. Why? Why is that? Because Edmund Dantes goes through just about everything a human being can go through. He goes through everything emotionally. You feel it with him. It's very easy to relate to this character. You'll feel such highs and lows with him. Absolute tragedy, absolute joy, humor in between, adventure, the ups and downs of living a really, really kind of exciting but also tragic life. And I think Edmund Dantes is such a rich character. Don't get me wrong, Dumas has a lot of pages to work with here. He has a lot of time. It's very much a kind of a one perspective kind of novel over very, very many pages. But yeah, he delivers it well. He delivers it so well. So what character did I enjoy more than Edmund Dantes? Strangely, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's going to be Croup. So Croup from the Malazan Book of the Fallen, he appears in more than one of the novels, but this is obviously the first one he appears in, Gardens of the Moon. Now, when we're first introduced to him, we are not sure of his nature. We're not sure of his motivations. We're not sure what kind of character is, because he communicates differently. He's extremely different to all the other characters in the novel. He talks in riddles. He's very, very affable. He's very funny. He lightens most scenes that he's in, but he can also be very powerful, very serious. He is an integral part to these early novels in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, but he's also a very entertaining part of the novels. I feel like the reason he steps up to number 1 spot, I have to try and explain to you. And that is because at certain times when you're reading a novel, you can tell that the author is having a lot of fun writing that character. Now, in my opinion, it feels like Stephen Erickson is enjoying himself when he writes this character. And that makes all of the difference to the reading experience for me personally. And that is why he is my number 1 for this year. Thanks for sticking with me. I understand that was a really long video. Please look forward to my top 10 books of the year. That will be coming up shortly, probably in about a week's time. In the meantime, if you could put your favourite characters from this year into the comments below, I'd really be interested to see what recommendations you guys have as far as good character novels goes.